Record. Alrighty, so welcome to, I guess I'm going to call this Intro to Data Science, but we're going to play around in a whole bunch of stuff that will be mostly guided by where you guys want to go with this class. A couple of things as notes to start. I'm Nathan Deinlein. I am a manager of data engineering. My background is originally in education, but then I moved over to the world of data science. I got my master's of data science at Southern Methodist University, and now I play with data all day long. So a lot of people that I know have been hitting me up asking me to run a class like this because they're interested in dipping their toes into the lovely data science world. And so I'm going to do the best I can to try to give you guys everything that you would need to start either into a data science journey or up your skills. So first couple of pieces of housekeeping, I will, at the beginning of next session, drop a link to YouTube where hopefully I will be housing all of these lovely videos of what we do on a daily basis. So in case you miss a class, feel free to go back and watch it. Or if you need a review or something like that. The other thing is everything that we work on in every single class, I will have basically ready to go at the beginning of class, and then it will be available to you after class. So I went ahead and dropped into the chat a link to GitHub. So for those of you unfamiliar with the world of writing software and everything like that, GitHub is the gold standard for the most part for being able to do version control and being able to share your code and other pieces with people who you might be working on a project with, or just having code out there so that people can use it. So this is a link to my personal GitHub. Everything will be in this intro to data science folder. If you want to go through and look at other projects that I've worked on, you're more than welcome to. You just click on this at the top and you can see I haven't necessarily done a whole bunch of stuff as of recently, but you can go back and look at like how to create a website, applications that I've created, other stats projects. And you can go to those by clicking on the repositories at the top. And then each of these is a repository or a repo. Think of it as just a shared file location. And you can pop in, take a look at everything that we're going to be doing. So everything that we're going to touch today is going to be in this class 1 folder and the program folder. When you pop them open, all of them will have a README that tells you what's going on with that and then what it is that we're actually playing with. And so just some basic housekeeping. For today, we're only going to be dabbling in Excel and going through kind of this admin stuff at the very beginning. So if you do not have a version of Python on your computer, I highly recommend going out into this right now, going to anaconda.com and downloading it. Anaconda is one of the most popular versions of Python as a distribution because it comes with a whole bunch of built-in packages that we'll use throughout this class. It's super user-friendly and super easy for people to get to know what it is that they're starting to play with in the world of Python. So basically, it's very simple. You go out, you download it, install it, drop it onto your PC, and you should be ready to go. They also have distributions in case you're a Mac person. You can download their Mac version also. So before next class, make sure that you have this booted up and ready to go. If we have time after this class, if I still have time left in the Zoom chat, I will be more than happy to walk anybody through installation processes or things that they're having trouble with off of the recording. But today we're going to play in Excel because Excel is a good place to start thinking about how we think about data. So in here are 3 different CSV sheets. All you have to do is pop in and you can hit this little download button and it will download the file for you to be able to go in and start doing some of the playing around with the data that we're going to do. So I'm going to go ahead and switch and we're going to start talking about data and data in general. Most of you have probably played in Excel. We're going to do some things that are a little weird to get you starting to think about how to think about programming, because everything that I will teach in this class is completely and utterly worthless. I can go on ChatGPT and have it basically drop all of the code and syntaxes and everything like that. What makes a data scientist is understanding how to problem solve, how to think about things, and understand how to put data together. That's why I still have a job and I haven't been replaced by Skynet. So when we start thinking about data and data science, the building block that we're going to start with is going to be Excel, because it's an easy way to visualize and think about this data. So we're going to start using some vocab words. We're going to talk about data frames. A data frame is just an Excel sheet. It's the easiest way to think about it, that is using that metaphor. It's not actually an Excel sheet, but for all intents and purposes, think of it as an Excel sheet. So we'll start playing with data frames a little bit more next week. We're going to start playing with some of the stuff and how to manipulate data within a data frame using Excel as our basic. So what I have here is a list of Amazon products. You can see there is a column for product name, launch year, status, and what it does. These are columns that could exist in a database. They could exist in a CSV file. They could exist in any number of different file types that are out there. And we want to be able to take this data and do something useful with it. So first thing we need to do is know different things about the data. So our first column here with product name, these are all names. If you look at it at the top, you'll notice that it says general, but in actuality, Excel is reading all of this in what's called a text format. We'll start playing with strings next week, which is essentially the exact same thing. The next thing up here, it's listed again as general, but this is basically being stored in some sort of number and digit. If I were to go through here as a whole number as an integer, I could basically sort this entire thing by, let's say I wanted to know what was the first product that was launched by Amazon. Really easy. I hit filter and then do the exact same thing. We'll start doing stuff like that in data frames next week. But basically, this is the functionality that we would think of. This one would sort alphabetically. We have some sort of flag here that is a status of active or discontinued. And then we have some sort of weird halfway in between limited. And then the last thing is just a string of text. Eventually, we'll go through how to break down this text into different components, start thinking about natural language processing, and maybe create our own chatbot. We'll see if we get that far before you guys get sick of me. But those are the things to note in our data set when we're looking at it and thinking about it from a standpoint of, well, what if I was pulling this information from a database? So looking at all of these pieces, I now have a list of products, but that's not necessarily helpful in what I want to do. So I have another list here that is from a website that's called Mock Data. I will drop the link in the chat here in a minute so that you guys can do this. But basically all the website does is it generates a whole bunch of randomized mocked up data. You can see Bondi delete. It's just basically throwing in randomized pieces of information in there so that we can use it. One thing that you will run across very quickly as a data scientist is not everything is automatically what you guess it's going to be. So here we have an ID column. We can pretty much guess that that's going to be significant based on our number of rows. We have a first name, last name. That data seems to be okay. We have emails from all over the place, but we'll notice that in here for IP address, like these are not IP addresses. These are actually zip codes. It's something you might run into as you start going through different databases and pieces like that, is that sometimes the data that you think is being generated in your query is not actually what's being stored in the database. So for today, we're actually just going to get rid of IP address because it's not going to be helpful to our case. So I have a list of customers and I have a list of products. So we're going to mock up some data really quick to start going through our different customers and different things that they've bought. So really quickly, I'm just going to grab all of our lovely customers, all 1,000 of them, and we're going to go back to our Amazon products and create a new tab. And what we're going to do in here is we're just going to start adding an index for our products. So each of these is a different product name. If they weren't different product names, like these two, hey, we've got a duplication. One thing we might want to check in our data before we go anywhere is, do we have duplication? Two ways you can really easily look at that in Excel: conditional formatting, highlight cells and rules, duplicate values. Okay. Apparently we have 2 Amazon pharmacies. The other thing you can do if you don't want to play with conditional formatting, manage rules. We're just going to get rid of that rule. Apply, thank you. One other thing that you can do is you can drop duplicates based on a subset of columns. So let's say that Amazon Pharmacy had 2 different descriptions as to what it was. We want to keep both descriptions in there. What we can do is highlight everything in Excel and go to this data, and we can actually remove the duplicates, and it will ask us which columns do we want to remove duplicates on. So if we select only product name, basically what it's going to do is go through here and say, if there are any duplications, so if there are 15 Amazon robotics in here, it's going to drop it down to 1, regardless of what is in these other cells. Normally what it does is it keeps whatever the first record is and removes the rest of them. If we want them to be, it has to be a different product name and different launch year. We can put those in, so on and so forth. You guys very easily get the concept. This is going to be something that becomes in super importance when we start looking at joining different data sets together inside of Python, because if you have multiple things that you're joining on that are the same, so in this case, Amazon Pharmacy, it might duplicate everything that you've got data-wise in your data frame. So things that we want to think about as we start to go through that. So I'm going to go ahead and just get rid of everything on product name. There was 1 duplication, 35 remain, cool beans. We're going to give them an ID, 1. Now, if I just draw it down, it'll go to 1, which is really annoying. So what you can do is once you've got both of them, you can start drawing this down, and you can see already in there that it's already starting to go up all the way to 35. And we're going to rename this product ID. So cool, now we have a product ID. And I'm going to adjust my filter so that I've got everything. So we are tasked as a data analyst with coming up with how many people are accessing each of these product names. So they've given us our list. We've gotten rid of the duplications. We know our product IDs. Now the question is, how many customers are essentially going through and buying each of these different products? So going back to our customer sheet, we're going to create a just fake column really quick that is product ID. This is going to be the product that they have purchased. So we can put any number randomly 1 to 35. So 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 5, 5, 6, 7. You get the idea that it's kind of randomized. These people are all going to buy product 6. We're going to start really fast going through these and adding them in. If you want to go through and quickly add a whole bunch of things in, if you are unaware, you can always double click down here and it will fill in down to whatever that point is. If you have nothing below here, it will fill in all the way down to essentially the column next to it. So very easy way to go through here and basically say, all right, all these customers bought product number 1. All right, so now we've got a list of the products and the customers that bought them. The number is not necessarily important. What we do want to do is start essentially creating, now that we've got this data of what product they bought, we want to group that. So we'll start talking about how to group that in Python next week, but in Excel, it's really easy to do. You can literally use a simple function that is called COUNTIF. And then it will explain to you right here, COUNTIF, you need a range and a criteria. So we're going to give it the range, in this case, column over here. We want to look at this range of values. These are the products that people actually bought. And now we need the criteria, which in this case is going to be count me all of the things from sheet 1 FF where product ID equals whatever. So in this case, where product ID equals 1. So that's what our formula is going to look like. COUNTIF in this column, the product is this. Cool. And we can see, we're going to call this our quantity column. We're going to go through and we see not very many of these have been purchased by this person, or not many of this product have been purchased, but we can then count up how many people bought each of these products. Really easy, super simple. Now you've been tasked with, well, how much money did they spend? Okay, so we're going to play with 2 new really quick little formulas in here. The first one is going to be called SUMIF. The second one is going to be a random number generator. On our second sheet. So I'm going to pop over here. That is our product ID. Oops, I didn't fill in a couple of these. I'm a terrible person. 2 more people now bought product 7. Now we're going to create a revenue column. And any of these products, we're just going to say it's a random number. And then it's going to tell me I need to specify essentially the range. So the bottom number and a top number. So nothing is free, so everything has to be at least $1, and we'll go all the way up to $1,000 of what they spent on that product. So it's just going to generate different random numbers. You can see they're all completely different for all of these. And so now that I know these people have bought this specific product, I'd like to know how much did the Whole Foods market end up making us. So we're going to now do this revenue column over here. And then we're going to do a simple SUMIF. So SUMIF is exactly like COUNTIF. We're just adding an extra range in there. So the first thing we're going to do is go grab our range of what are we looking at to identify if somebody bought something. So it's still going to be that column F. The second thing is our criteria, which is it needs to be essentially product ID 1. That's the only thing we want to look at right now. And then the last thing is give me the range of values to sum up. So in this case, I'm going to sum my revenue for each of those lines, call it a day, and hit enter. And then because we're dealing with money, we're going to change this to a dollar amount. And then we can just go through, drop it down to all of our different columns. So essentially, this is a really simple activity that we've started going through and building out a data set that would be something like you would build out at work based on 2 really quick things that we're looking at. So now I want to play with something a little bit different. I want to use those product ID keys to start looking up a name of a person who bought them. So I want to essentially go through and say, all right, I've got all these product IDs over here. I want to know what Aubrey actually bought. What is product ID 1? So I love that it keeps changing the randomized number as soon as I've done that. To lock in these randomized numbers, once you've created any sort of thing like that, all you have to do is hit Control Shift and down. That will grab you essentially all of the things in that column. Just hit Control C, go all the way back up to the top, and then you do paste numbers. That will lock in essentially everything. So now there is no randomized number. It is literally locked in at 620. All right, back to what we were actually looking at. So I want to know what this product is that Aubrey bought. And I've got a table over here that has the product ID, and I want to know what the product name is and what it does. So what we're going to do is we're going to create 2 columns in our other sheet. Boom. And boom. And we're going to do what's called a VLOOKUP. So VLOOKUP is a way to essentially grab data from one table and move it to another table. So we're going to start moving in that direction. So what we need is a key of some sort. We'll play more with keys next week, but we need a key of some sort to be able to know which line we need to find in this. The rule with VLOOKUPs is VLOOKUPs always go from the left over to the right. So I can't look up a status of active and then try to look up the product key over here, or I can't look up what it does and look up the product ID over here. It always has to go left to right. Having said that, the formula for this is really simple. It's VLOOKUP, grab whatever our key is going to be, boom, and then we're going to give it our range of what data we want it to look at to return a value to us. So in this case, we're going to start with wherever our ID is, and we're going to go all the way. It's best practice, in my opinion, go all the way to whatever the max value you're going to be grabbing. So if I wanted to, for product name, I could literally set this up as grab A to B, return value 2, call it a day. But because I'm literally about to also do the what it does column, I might as well just grab all the way over there now. And then it's a very simple counting activity. So once I've got my comma in there to basically say I want to look at A to E, I need to tell it which value to return. So if I tell it to return value 1, it's just going to tell me the product ID. Value 2, product name. Value 3, 4, you get the idea. So for this first one, I want it to return value 2. If you do not put a comma after this, it's always just going to return whatever value 2 is over and over and over again. So make sure you put a comma, and then you can close your brackets. So there we go. Product ID 1. If I go over, look at it, it's Whole Foods Market. So go ahead and drop that down. Now, some of you have probably seen where you can basically move stuff over, but you see that I immediately broke stuff. The reason that I broke stuff is because when I dragged it over, rather than going in here and copy pasting everything, now you see that it works, but it's pulling basically the exact same value. The reason is Microsoft is automatically moving everything 1 to the right. So all of your values are now shifting. If I want those to stay the same, you can lock those in. And here's how to do it. So if I want to lock in that I'm always looking at column A in my VLOOKUP for this key, I just put a dollar symbol in front of it. If I always want it to look at value 2, but go ahead and slide across here of like, look at value 1, look at value 2, B, C, I could put essentially a dollar symbol in between 2, and it would lock the 2. So wherever you put that dollar symbol in front of it, it's going to lock that piece. So we're going to throw in a couple of dollar symbols here. Do essentially one here and one here. This is telling it, lock yourself to A to E. Do not look at anything else. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. I'm not going to put one after this because I actually want that to change and move up to 3. If Microsoft will actually allow that to happen. So, all right, we're going to drop that down to all of our lovely peeps. So they've got all that, and then we're going to try dragging across now. And now we see essentially it locked everything exactly in place. All I have to do is now go tell it which value for that key value pair I want it to go about pulling. So I actually want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to be returned. Just change it to 5. Drop it down. And now I have a record of essentially Aubrey bought this. Here's how long, or here's what it does, everything like that. And basically go through and pull all of those pieces all the way down. You can see that we've officially broken some things, which is interesting. Why is it breaking? A37. Oh, because I pulled the wrong value. Wile E. Coyote, super genius. There we go. You should fix everything. It's the other thing you're going to do a lot of is looking at your code and going, all right, what did I break? So it's kind of a thing on a daily basis that you'll run into. My team has a Wile E. Coyote award of we've been staring at it so long, and it's something like I missed a comma in my code. So now that we've got all of these built out.
Hey, Nathan.
Hey, yeah.
I just have a quick question. So in my previous job, we always used XLOOKUP. And then I noticed in this job, since I'm on the analytics team, I work in Excel a lot, that everyone's always using VLOOKUP. What's the, like, is one better than the other, or is it just preference?
It's mostly preference. One of the things in data science is there are multiple ways to go about doing anything that you actually want to do. So there isn't necessarily a wrong way to go about doing it. There's more efficient ways to go about doing it sometimes. But essentially, like there's nothing you necessarily need to worry about in terms of like, well, I do it this way and they do it that way. Most of it is down to personal preference. So
Okay, gotcha. Cool.
no, not a problem.
Cool. Thanks.
So yeah, VLOOKUP has kind of been what I've used always. The next thing that we want to conceptually think about is a group by. So we've kind of done that a little bit with quantity and revenue, but let's say that we are launching multiple products out there and we want to essentially, I want to know, I don't care about the product, I care about the launch year. What was our most successful product redemption year? So we're going to create that next by essentially saying, I want these 2 columns. It must be from that year and it must be active. So I'm just going to go ahead and drop those in here. The next thing that I'm going to do is that really quick remove duplicates thing that I showed you guys earlier. Boom. There are ways in Python of going through and essentially coding this so that it's doing exactly these things for you. I'm just showing you how to do them in Excel super fast. So we're going to put all of this in chronological order because that's the best way to do it. And then we're going to get rid of all these ones that are discontinued. Boom and boom. All right. Now here's something that we have to do that's a little bit weird in Excel that we don't have to necessarily do in Python or any sort of scripting language. In those languages, I can just basically say group on launch year and status, and then sum, revenue, and quantity. I can't necessarily do that very easily on Excel. So what we're going to do is we're going to cheat. we're going to use another formula that's called concat. Concatenation is probably something you guys are going to run into a lot. It's super useful. Basically, you're shoving two things together. So we're going to combine B2 and C2. Boom. And you'll see that it creates this cool little like primary hashtag key over here on the side, or hash key. What we're going to do is we're going to create this exact same key on our Amazon product sheet. Insert. Boom, boom, boom. Drop it down to everything. And then now that we've got this, we're just going to hide it. Don't necessarily need it. And now we can do our sum if column. So equals sum if. First thing we're going to do is we're going to grab our range. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to grab our key, which is A2. And then the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to grab the range to add up. So we're going to do quantity first, and then we're going to do revenue. Boom, perfect. So quantity, revenue, we can take this exact piece, we're going to move it over, and we know that essentially revenue is the next column over. So I'm just going to shift those to H really quick. Boom. Now that we've got all these, we've ported them over. We can paste them in. And now we can have fun submitting something to our boss that says, yep, our most productive year by revenue was 1980, followed by 2002, 2003. We can sort these however they want. Or we can create a graphic really quick. We'll go more into creating graphics on the Python side because it's a little bit more user-friendly and intuitive than what Microsoft Excel has gotten to recently. But essentially that's what we're going to start really going through in terms of summing all of that stuff up. And we can port it over to our boss really quick. So the main things that I've kind of just gone through with you guys are essentially grouping stuff, adding stuff, counting stuff, and being able to remove duplicates and thinking about primary keys. This is essentially the basics of data science. If you can do these things and understand these basic concepts, you can do 90% of the work out there. The hard part is just going to be figuring out what to do with more complex data that fits together in more complex ways as we continue to go on. Questions. I'm going to leave like my last 3 minutes that I've got on Zoom left open for questions. If there are any. If not, I'll stop the recording.
I'm all set on my end. Thank you.